And for the fifth day is basically the usability study. Now, Harvard University has a collection of questions that you can ask, which is really, really good to follow. Worth iterating on, so for your own context. It's like product questions, user questions, stuff like that. I really like that, their PDF that they share for free. And so the objective of a usability study is to put the person in a scenario, so you set the stage. You're about to go on a commute and you want to buy some coffee. You've opened your app and this is what you see. And then you basically ask them, how would you buy coffee? And then you just let them do it. And then if they do it, successful, tick, that works great. Then afterwards, you might do follow-up questions of what did you like? What did you dislike? If you had a magic wand and could ask for anything, what would that thing be? Again, it's like that's free-flowing conversation to try and tease out stuff. One technique I always say, solicitors and lawyers do this in court, is when you ask a question, take a deep breath and count 5 seconds in your head, because people feel silence. That's why solicitors and lawyers do that in court, because then you implicate yourself. That's a tip. If you're ever going to court, if they go quiet, then you go quiet as well. But people feel silence, and it's in those moments where you can get the real pain point that you're getting at for them. So that's why you should never interrupt. 75% of the conversation should be coming from them.
Yeah.
And so after that, then obviously someone has to consolidate the data. So you have one person writing notes, one person is building the rapport with the user in the interview, because you don't want to be writing and asking questions because you would lose sight of stuff. Maybe another person to observe the actual usability study, like just to take notes to see how they're behaving. And then the rest of the team is observing from a separate room. Like, so if you're screen sharing the thing. And then 5 users is usually sufficient.
How do you get the users to show up?
That's incentives, maybe, is one thing, I suppose, if you pay people, or,
there's sites that do that, right? Like that you could post. I've seen
user Zoom can do stuff like that, especially for remote working.
Yeah.
Usertesting.com.
Yeah, I think usertesting.com is one I've used in the past.
One of the challenges with those sites, the users may be generic. So if the flow is coffee ordering, that may be fine. But if it's for a very specific use case, like ordering medical equipment in a hospital, then ideally you need people who would
do that on a regular basis.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think of something very specific. So you really need the real people, otherwise the feedback you might get back is not necessarily genuine. And so I've forgotten his name. He basically, it'll come to me after the recording's finished. He basically came up with the concept of the user persona. He used to work at Microsoft. I think he invented Pascal. Anyways, he had this idea that you always bring in 7 because 2 won't show up. Now, 1 might show up, 1 would be completely useless, and the other 5 guarantees that you have data.
Yeah.
It's like, it's that usability studies is not like a design sprint thing. They've existed forever. So 7 people is probably a good number just for on the safe side. Then after you've done them, if there's something that's come up twice or 3 times, you may want to pivot the prototype. Say, okay, we've learned something, we need to improve on it just to make sure that the following interviewees get something valuable out of it. And then once you have your data, it's either successful or a failure. And so that will give you enough information to go forward. Maybe you need to run another sprint that focus on that. Maybe you need to create a new prototype based on that feedback and do another round of usability studies or usability tests. But that basically puts you on track to creating something and gives you a clear idea if the thing that you're trying to create is actually useful or not. Now, a design sprint will help you understand the idea that you have in mind. What it won't do is necessarily allow you to come up with that eureka moment where you realize that there's a huge pain point in people's lives. Ideally, you might do some kind of user research way before then that you present at the lightning talk. So, for example, I've given this McDonald's example before, but McDonald's trying to sell more milkshakes. They asked people, they said, make it sweeter, cold, or whatever. They made it. Milkshakes didn't sell. It's just the same. So then they hired a consultant to stand outside of McDonald's for 19 hours a day, observed what people were doing, and found most milkshakes were sold in the morning. And then they asked them why, and it's basically because they wanted something to consume on a commute on the way to work. And so that was the eureka moment. You can't really get that, this is what people are trying to achieve in a design sprint. You have to kind of do it beforehand. Maybe in the moment of when you're in the usability study, but in a sense, that's a bit too late.
Right.
You want to have arrived at that kind of aha moment sooner.
Yeah, that's spot
This
on.
was something to really consider.
Yeah.